Faster! 'Tis thy lord's will! Barked Horus, as the Arch-Paladin stood above the rabble of penitents as they constructed the sacred foundations of these hallowed halls. Faster did they work, as he watched with glaring golden eyes, observing the masses as they built the stonework for this grandiose cathedral. Others were commanded by Varamil to repair the ancient walls, rebuild it with fine masonry and reinforce it with metalwork, ready for any blasphemers or sinners that would dare attack our noble home. Construction took months to repair the walls of the city, originally dubbed Haven at this moment in history. The beginnings of a city, one that would rival the foundations of the newly formed kingdom of Valpin and the decrepit ruins of Loquin. A shining beacon of hope and tranquility for all. To worship the Father, the Divine, the Bringer of Dawn. The living Saint Lauretta, enraptured by her powers of the Lord, was given purpose. She was to rule this religious kingdom with an iron fist, a bulwark against the darkness that lurked across this early years of Icilion. She was an angel of penitence, a deliverer of judgment on the ill-willed and the boisterous creatures and sinful mortals that loomed within the fog that dwelled in nearly every land of Thymesia. Wherever this grey fog went, ash followed and settled in the remains in the vegetation, the mountains, the waters and the rivers. This always puzzled our saint, and the divine's answers to her questions regarding this mass of ash that fluttered in the wind does not answer many of our questions in current-day Foxton either. The divine simply responded to Lauretta's queries with, "Judgment, my saint." Judgment for what? We to this day are unsure what the divine meant in this response. As wise as he is, my fellow scholars and I, the rememberancers, have our working theories. Is it possibly linked to the disappearance of the ancient elven race? We have indeed found traces of their blasphemous worship of other gods rather than our wondrous own. Maybe that was the reason. Not fact, but a theory. Or is it possibly a punishment for those who are ill-willed, perhaps humans that predated these wondrous human beings that now populate Icilion? I digress. Onwards with the readings. Later in the Verbum Archangelorum, Lauretta's passage describes a moonlit sky. The incandescent rays of the moon's light dance across the construction of Foxton as she floated in the air with her fellow Nephilim in delight. The difference in 72 hours was impeccable. Varamil turned to Lauretta, placing a soft hand upon her armored shoulder. "You have done well, Saint. The progress of these penitents, soon to be pilgrims and anointed, has all been down to you. Without your guiding light, they would have been lost lambs. They would not found this place, and Horus and I would have never been able to walk this earth. Benevolence is still unfortunately sealed. The damned ancients of this world that predate you sealed our home, cut us off from the mortal lands of Icilion. But you, Lauretta, saint of these humans, will be the breaker of those chains. You are in the right direction." His words soft and comforting to Lauretta, as Horus too chimed in. He speaks the truth, sister. Your work is far from done. But it is a fantastic start. Our Heavenly Father is sure to be pleased with you. I have trained these paladins well, to be your shining light. If you are busy, or have returned to benevolence, they shall act in your place. I fear that the fog that circles this early land holds the darkest of nights. Lauretta smiled at both of her Nephilim brothers, and responded softly.
I thank you both, incredibly so. Your beliefs in me are a comfort, brothers. I suggest we watch, see what they can do alone, and if the time comes, we shall intervene.
Lauretta responded to both of them, gaining a nod from both Nephilim. Have you thought of a name for such a kingdom yet? By all rights in human society, you are its founder, and by tradition, its queen. So? Varamil questioned her. Lauretta paused, her hand resting upon her chin, until she replied.
I saw a fox, leaping into action as it sprung onto its prey. It snatched the small rabbit, taking it in its mouth to feed its young. She was graceful, elegant, and behind the fox I saw our father's sun, rising, casting a blanket of warmth on this soft woodland creature. When the sun doth fully rose, did the small cubs roam freely, happy that they had food for another day or even more. The fox looked towards me as I sat upon our stone walls. It nodded its small, soft head towards me, and I smiled in response. I saw not a fox, but a sign, a symbol for our people. We fight in the dark so our dawn may be brought onto the world. We make it so that our young can feast happily and bathe in the divine's light. Foxton, I shall name us, for our leaps are mythical and the sun guides us.
Henceforth, this kingdom of ours is now known to us as Foxton, as it will be forevermore. The land of the divine, the home of his religion. The fox is now revered as a celestial creature in these lands, along with our brilliant symbol of the divine, the dawning sun that dawns our orange crests. Varamil, Horus, and Lauretta rested atop the clouds, sharing grapes and wine, as Varamil serenaded the atmosphere with a tune upon his lyre. However, a test was to be granted to this mid-construction religious city, as a foe born in true darkness began to grow from the woods of Lockwin. The Scolded. Without a word of warning, fire was flung out from the fogged fields of Foxton as pyromantic bombs of burning oil was flung onto the thatched roofs of the small village huts. Arrows fired in the hundreds peppered the guardsmen on the walls, and a howl of banshee-like screams echoed out in the dark. Lauretta was about to receive her test.